Welcome back to This Takes the Cake. We're super honored and excited to have my good friend here, Pasha Belman. He is a well-known photographer here in South Carolina and obviously all over the U.S. as well. And we're so excited to kind of talk about all kinds of photography things today. But let's kind of start, how did we meet or when did we meet? It's been a long time.
Yes. So first of all, thank you for having me here
Of
today.
course.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Your office looks amazing, by the way.
Well, thank
this is
you.
a beautiful space. The way we met, it was at the bridal show. I think it was, I don't even know how many, 10 years ago?
I think 13.
Or 13 years.
13 years ago, yeah.
We went to, we just attended as, even though I was doing wedding photography back then, but I think we just attended just to even see what bridal show was all about.
Yep.
And I think I remember this is actually how we met. You were there with your mom.
Yeah.
And you
I
had
ride or
beautiful
die.
portraits.
Yeah.
Beautiful portraits there. And I think this is our first kind of encounter. And then after that, I think we just connected.
I remember you and Natalia were dressed like super like to the T, and I was like, who are these people? I need to know them. So I remember that whole like moment of you guys walking up and talking. And that's been 13 years ago, which is so crazy. And then we did a styled shoot. I mean, probably it was shortly after.
Maybe a year later.
Maybe
yes.
a year later. And probably, well, it is still the coolest styled shoot I've ever done because I don't think anyone else has ever done that. But we did it with a real elephant. And was it a liger or a tiger?
So I think they had tigers. I think they had a couple
It was
tigers.
tigers.
A little nerve-wracking, but it was.
Yeah, it was. I remember they were across the pool and we were on the other side. But it was definitely.
We had a beautiful couple. We had nice flowers there set up, and
we did. I think we had a cake. Oh, do you remember the Bubbles, the elephant? He actually ate the whole cake and the cardboard. That was so cool. I was like, oh my god, he just ate the whole cake.
I think that the whole photo shoot was. It was
definitely an epic one for sure. Yeah, I haven't topped that one.
I don't think we even need to redo that. I think this is just, it's nice. It's for the books. It's like you don't have to redo it.
And the photos are still like classic. Like they're still here in the office and people are like, is that a real elephant? I'm like, yep, that's a real elephant.
It was a great photo shoot. I remember that.
Yeah.
Bubbles still alive.
Bubbles is alive. I see him in the waterway sometimes if I'm on the water. So it's kind of crazy. So, all right. Well, we're going to dive right on into how you, Pasha, built an incredible business and your brand, and you're just everywhere. Like people will call me where they'll start planning the wedding. They're like, we want Pasha Belman. So your marketing is genius, first off.
Thank you.
And everybody knows who Pasha is, but a lot of times they think you're a girl. Do you get that a lot?
A lot, all the time.
I'm like, oh no, it's a boy, a man.
And like at the very beginning, I think maybe it slightly bothered me because, I just want to be known. I was like, all you have to do is just look up, go to like about section. You can probably learn about us if you just like go to a website, And then after a while, and that's, because we're a husband and wife team, everybody just assumed that, I'm a female. And of course, all the photos, because they look so beautiful, they're romantic, they're light, they're airy. And people just kind of, so they assume all of that. And so they all assume that potentially once they realize that, I'm a man and then they assume that it's my wife who's doing all of that. And it's not me. And I think it bothered me maybe 10 years ago. I think now I don't even emphasize on it anymore because at the end of the day, if you think I'm a female because you really fall in love with my work, it's the least of my worries because by the time I'm already there in front of you and you already fall in love with my work, then you get to realize what Pasha and who Pasha is and everything else. So it's never, now it's just one of those things, especially when I answer the phone because I answer the phone all the time. So if somebody calls me, they'd probably assume that, a female voice is going to like answer the phone. It was like, hi. And it's like, Pasha, like, hello, how you doing today?
Right. No, for sure. That's awesome.
No, so it's more, it happens more often than none, but at the same time now it's just kind of like, people get to know a little bit more. People take time to actually learn a little bit more about us.
Check you out. Yeah.
And that's why we're doing social media more and in the website and everything else in between. So this way people can kind of put the face in who I am. But I was never trying to put my face out there to say like, this is me. I just always made it about the work and about the photos and about the clients that we show. So
no, agree. No, 1,000%. All right. So when did you start photographing weddings, and was this something you always knew you wanted to do?
No. So when I started it, I think probably that maybe I would probably say 15 years ago. I did not know I wanted to do wedding photography. I enjoyed doing portraits.
Okay.
At that time we worked with like maybe high school seniors. We did some family photos. But
And that's a
then
big thing here.
it
Here
is.
in the
It
South.
is. It is.
Like getting your photos as a high school senior, that is a thing. In other places it's not. It's weird. But I grew up in North Carolina. That was like the thing.
The trend when we started, the trend just started out, and people were, because back in the days, high school senior portraits were done in the studio.
Yeah, right.
And
for
it's just
school,
like a classic portrait,
Yep.
with the little signs and everything else. And now it's just they turn more into like a fashion forward, event.
Full photo shoot, yeah.
But we had a friend of ours actually who we knew came to us almost 15 years ago, and she asked, because I think what I end up doing is that I had my camera and I literally would attend somewhere or go somewhere if I see a bride or a wedding, random places, and just not for even a job, but just like I would take a photo at the distance and just show off like on Facebook and be like, hey, check this out, and then eventually people realize that they're like, oh, maybe you could do my wedding. And someone did actually approach us one time, and it was nerve-wracking because I don't know how to charge, how much to charge for a wedding, what do I need, what kind of photos. So you try to research all of that, and it's a lot because there's so much information out there.
Well, it's a lot of pressure.
A lot.
And I tell people, that's the one thing that people walk away with wedding day. So I'm like, don't skimp on the photographer. Like that is, you don't get to take the cake home, you don't get to take the food home.
But they trusted us, and they brought us on board, and we did their engagement session, we did bridal portraits for this couple. Their wedding day, and we traveled to Virginia. It was like almost 7-hour or 8-hour drive.
Wow.
And it was overwhelming, for our very first wedding.
Of course, absolutely.
But after that, we enjoyed it. I think the thrill of actually creating something for clients and seeing their faces, especially after you do their bridal portraits or their engagement session, and then you show up to their wedding and families are like, we love everything. This is amazing.
Right.
And then you get more, inspired by it. You're just like, wow. And then you can, and after that, we just kept on going with it, and grew into becoming wedding photographers in the area.
Right.
So
yeah, it's crazy to think like when you think back of this isn't what you like dreamed of doing, how you kind of fell into, your career. So it's always cool to hear those stories. All right. What was something you learned from your first wedding?
So it took me some years to actually figure this out, but I didn't learn something right away from that particular wedding just because it was a lot of things were thrown at us.
Of course.
But over the years later, I think what I end up learning more from it is that how much I over Photoshop or over edited everything at that time.
Right.
And then over time, I just look and analyze and everything else that, this was the style, this was the trend. And what I learned is to potentially stay clean and classic versus continue with the trend that was back then. The trend back then was overlays, a lot of Photoshop, a lot of, grunginess, to photos, edgy.
Right. Yeah.
And that's so over time we kind of like turn it down, tone down, and then mostly what I've learned from is that stay away from trends. Trends come, they go, they go, but timeless always stays.
Agree. And we try to tell that with clients too, especially when they're the look and the feel for the wedding.
They bring you a big Pinterest and it's like, I want this.
Right.
Because it's so trendy right now.
It is. Yeah, no, for sure. No, agree. All right, ballpark estimate. How many weddings do you think you've photographed or photographed?
Over the years?
Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea?
So we do let's say 15 years. I mean, we did at least 20 to 30 weddings per year. So, I mean, it's not a lot of weddings. We have not, right. I cannot tell you that I photographed 1,000 weddings.
Yeah,
over
no,
the
for
time.
sure.
No.
Yeah.
We always limited ourselves to how many weddings we actually do. So if I will sit and calculate, over the years, plus minus some years where we only had 10 weddings, especially at the very beginning of the career.
Of course.
Probably under 200 weddings.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, it's still a lot. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. There's still
we never honestly I never really thought into this like we did 2,000 weddings. That's why you should hire me. No, I was like I deliberately we took small amount of weddings each year, and it allowed us to potentially concentrate to that particular client that we were working with. And because we were doing other portraits, we were doing high school seniors, we were doing family photos,
other things.
We were doing other things. So I was a combination of all of it. And then I said to myself, I'm like, do I want to do 60 weddings for the year, or could I be okay with 20? And that was almost like a magic number for us.
So. Yeah, 60 is way too many. Well, and you have we do all the pre-planning before wedding, but you're doing everything after the wedding, so you can get behind in editing real quick if you have a lot of weddings. So
you can, but I think over the years, and that's another thing that learning from your previous weddings and everything else that we do is that editing used to take a long time for us. because we're overdoing it. And
Right.
majority of editing now is done in camera. Like, if you can take a good shot, know what you're doing with the light, and get the image that you actually want. There's barely anything you have to do to the images now.
Right.
That's why, for most part now, it takes us less than 4 weeks to deliver a wedding for Sarah.
That's
right?
awesome. Yeah.
I mean, we get them pretty. We get them out pretty.
And
very efficient.
You're good on sneak peeks, getting those out quickly because people are excited. They want a few here and there. So,
absolutely.
How long do you think it took to find your editing style? Obviously, I know you talked about you over photoshopped and edited in the beginning, but when would you say?
Probably good, solid, maybe 7-10 years.
Okay, cool.
And the crazy part about that is, once I realized that timeless and clean is the look I want to stay with, because it never dies out. Just learning from magazines, or you look at like Ralph Lauren, or you look at different brands, and just to see what is it that people like about that luxurious feel of their magazines or their look, and it's potentially just the cleanliness of it.
Agree.
So, and then I said, you know what? I enjoy that. I enjoy that it's just, I don't know. It just never goes out of style. And I kept it. And I think the hardest part is that with social media is that you have a lot of amazing artists, a lot of photographers, designers, event planners, and everybody has, shown all their work and everyone they work with. And if we follow all of this and we see all of that, the hard part is that you always overthink, like, is my style good enough? Because this is what they're sharing. So you almost like trying to follow the trend and say, oh, maybe I should try this. Maybe I should try this. Maybe I should try this. And then you fall into this, almost like a limbo of, you don't know what your style is anymore. So what I stopped doing is that I stopped paying attention to what everyone else was doing.
Amen. Did y'all listen to that? Don't look what everyone else is doing. Do your own thing. Yeah. And I'm a believer in that. Like, there'll be people coming, oh, do you see what she's doing and she's doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm doing my own thing over here. I'm not focused on those things. And
it makes you feel better, because at the end of the day, it's almost like you don't, like we'll go to social media, like you'll see other planners. I don't know if you have other planners you follow.
Yeah, of course.
But you see something and you're like, oh, I wish I would have done this. And I said to myself, we always overthink, and we see another artist or person who's doing something, and you maybe not doing something that day. Maybe you're a little bit slower that day. So you potentially almost like, well, what am I doing wrong? But you're doing absolutely nothing wrong. You're just, so I stopped paying attention to that. And for that reason, like, I barely follow any photographers on my Instagram. Like, if I go through it, most of the people that I follow are just our potential clients or potential people that I maybe know, met,
of course,
people that I've worked with before. But this way, I don't see a lot of beautiful, trendy pictures of flowers and designs and beautiful destinations. This way, I don't get sucked into.
Focus on that. Yeah, no, for sure. So I will tell you one thing that I really, when working with you, that I super enjoy. Obviously your personality, enthusiasm, is awesome, because if you have a bridal party of 12 people, like, whenever I'm talking to a client and they're thinking about booking a photographer, like, that's important to me on the back end. Like, if they're just very quiet and not spoken, I become the photographer. Like, okay, we need to move here, like, and you are great at that. And you're very firm, but fun with it. And there's a way to deliver those things. I've had like mean photographers. They didn't mean it mean, but that was just the way that they would be like, get over here, you do this. And I'm like, oh gosh, there's a way to deliver those things.
I'll tell you a crazy story.
Okay.
It's not a story, but it's, so growing up, I was super shy.
Oh, really? I would have never actually guessed that. So
yes. As I was, I was always charismatic around people that I knew, but meeting new people, I was always shy. I was not, the most talkative, like, in the places where I knew people, it's a different story.
Yeah.
But if meeting new people for the first time, it's like I would be at my distance. Now it's a completely opposite. And I think when I first moved to the United States, I moved here from Russia in 1996, and I spoke no English. So it was like,
it was really?
A little, so it was,
wow.
so it was a little tough then. But then coming here, it was, I don't know, being shy, not speaking English, and probably within...
It's intimidating for sure.
Very,
I mean, yeah.
But at the same time, when I went to college, I needed money to pay for things, or maybe buy my first car. And finally, I was acquiring my first car. I got a job at the restaurant locally, and I was in High Point at that time. And still, speaking English, but very barely. And I had to learn, their menu. But their menu is like, you have like different types of onions and nuts and shallots and different everything on the menu, and then you have to like relearn. And the cool part is that this is where I got my shyness turned around a little bit, because in the restaurant, you have to talk to people once they come to you.
You do.
You know, they come to you, they sit at your table, and you potentially become the show to them. Like, you know, you want to, you know, treat them, you want to greet them, you want to serve them and do stuff. And then over time, I worked there for 4 years. Once I left college, you know, and worked in the restaurant for 4 years, like that shyness sort of like went away, and I became more outgoing. I was like, now I'm going to serve. Like, I kind of took that back, and then I preserved that to everything I do now. Even when I meet people for the first time at weddings, you know, 12 guys on the bridal side, and, you know, bridal party, 12 girls, and then you don't know who they are, but then
for sure,
be able to actually speak up to them and talk to them, and be confident about it, because that's what they're looking for sometimes, you know. So.
No, for sure. And I mean, they're sometimes intimidated too, you know, with like being behind the camera, because not everybody's wants to take photos, you know. So I mean, I've had couples like the groom was like didn't want to take any photos, you know. So okay, so for other photographers out there, what advice do you have?
Just hustle, grind. Don't pay attention to what everybody else does. And I think just going back to the whole idea of when we look at other people, because our creative minds, because we're so creative, we want to outdo everyone else, right? You know, we want to do that you know, better. We want to do best, or potentially we see other people and we see that they're doing amazing, and we always put ourselves back on the burner that we're just like, this is not, you know, maybe my style. And I think just potentially keep your style to yourself, and pay attention to what you do, and then just become yourself, you know, like define your own style.
Agree.
That's the number one thing for us, and without potentially trying to mimic other people or copy their style, or just find, you know, be more authentic with that.
Right.
Because over time, you know, the trends or everything else will go away. And another thing, especially in the wedding industry, what I potentially would recommend to photographers that are either going into it or already doing something, to stay away from magazines or stay away from wedding blogs. And what I mean by it, there's so much information out there for what they want you to do.
Right.
So we start shooting for magazines and for blogs. And we take the clients and put them in the back burner, because we're shooting for the magazines and for the blogs.
Yeah, because they're looking for certain things. Yeah.
And it's okay. I think we can get those inspirational shots, you know, of details
course.
And everything else. Absolutely. Because we want to also preserve all the memories for clients, but we also want to make sure that you have what you need, because we want to show off your work. We want to show off, you know, the florist work. We want to show off, you know, everybody else's work. But in the process, we also need to remember that what are we doing this for? And we're doing this for the client. So
right.
Make sure that, you know,
photos of them.
Not just of them, but just in general, like the story of how the day potentially unfolds. But I think and I think at the beginning of our career, we're so hooked up to all these different magazines that we need to be published, and we're so like hooked to it. And at the same time, it was like nowadays it just you know, it's not there anymore.
Yeah, no, I do agree. And one thing I really like when I work with you is you move stuff. Like we're setting up, maybe the bride's getting dressed or whatever. We need to take something off the wall, or we need to move this chair out of the way. Like you're not afraid to do those things. So as a photographer, don't be afraid. Don't be. Oh, I don't know better about that. But like, don't be afraid to move stuff. Like I've had photographers that like just take a picture, and I'm like, no, like you got to move and like be creative.
Well, that plus I don't want to do Photoshop later. That's what I said.
Well, yeah, it's going to cost you or more time on your end. You know?
All the editing is done in camera, so
get the right shot. Yeah.
So for that reason, anytime we go into a girls' suite where, you know, girls are getting ready, and a lot of times, you know, there's always
like a tornado that happened.
They're there, we understand, and we understand that. But sometimes the first thing I come in, and if I look around, I scan the room, and if I see there's a lot of things like bottles, phones, you know, bras, everything, shoes.
Right.
I'll literally ask someone, and I'll say, ladies, can, you know, just politely just say, I would love for you, because they're there to help the bride.
Of
and
course.
If I ask them, I mean, the room will be clean within a few seconds, and the girls will, and we'll walk around, we'll move things around just away, and they'll ask us, like, do you want this? We'll move pillows from couches. We'll you know, just to get the clean look photo versus potentially just continue. You know, I know we want the documentary style, and we can still do that, but we can do it in the clean room.
Yeah.
Instead of a room that has like a lot of things in it. So.
I know. There's sometimes, not from you, I've gotten photos back, I'm like, wow, that room was a wreck. You know?
And occasionally we'll just, you know, we'll shoot, if this is what we have, we'll
you just make it black and white, right?
Make it black and white, and we'll get everything disappeared. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, everything looks great in black and white.
Right. Okay, so what is like the craziest like family list or list a couple's ever sent you? Have you gotten something like crazy before?
Not crazy.
Okay. long?
So
like 3 pages long, or like
probably longer than that. So it's not that. So people will create a list for us, and then they'll try to send it to us, and they'll say, "Keep the list to yourself." Because I don't know your family. I mean, first,
you don't know Uncle John.
I don't know Uncle John. But what I normally, this is what I always say: create a list as long as you need. And of course, we'll talk about to the wedding planner. We'll talk to their timeline. Like, you have to make sure you have enough time for that, because if not, we'll spend an hour just for family photos, and then there's no more photos for bride and groom. There's no more bridal party photos, just because we spend almost an hour and a half just for family photos.
I know, and sometimes people take the family photos to a whole nother level. I'm like, let's save that for a family session with Pasha next week.
Yes. But we had a wedding in Georgia, and I love my couple. They were amazing, and they presented us with a list, and the list was, I think there was about 40 or 50 different family members that we documented, and it was like monsoon outside. It was pouring down, so we went inside, we set up some lights, and honestly, it worked out. We did it, but this was what's important to them on wedding day. It was more important to them than maybe potentially us spend the same hour maybe doing details, and we still managed to get the details, of course, and everything else in between. But it was the longest, probably. I think probably took us about an hour and 20 minutes just to complete the entire. But we had a person in there, and I usually say, find someone who's very charismatic, someone who's loud enough, knows the family, can go down the list, and then just let's go.
Bam, bam, bam. Yeah,
but
for sure.
The organized part of it is great, because we get to document those family portraits, because in some cases, sometimes it's not like that we forget, but we're in the moment of doing something else that we might not grab that family photo. So I'll always walk up to the bride and I'll say, hey, do you remember if we took this and this? And she's like, I think so, but can I do this? And we'll walk with them around sometimes and do some of the portraits.
Some candidates, no, for sure. And if that's important to the client, the family photos versus the details,
there's a balance, and we have to do, because we want to do both. We want to be able to show them what their whole space looked like.
Right.
We want, so we wanted to do all of that as well. In the process, we still want to document their, because what I've noticed, even on social media, when people are couples, or just in general people, when they share their photos, they're not really sharing photos of plates and napkins. They usually will share a photo of, bride will share.
We are though.
Yes. Well, with the in the wedding industry, but they tend to share a photo. A bride will share a photo with her bridesmaids, maid of honor, and wish her happy birthday. Those are the images that they will share over the years. This is what they'll share.
Right. Absolutely.
People photos, and that's, to them, it's always been very important. Connection, and it's all about like their family connections, their family value, and for most of our clients that find our work appealing, their family values they're together. It's like, it's amazing. Yeah. It's
no, for sure,
good relationships. So
well, and obviously family photos, if grandma or grandpa's older or whatever, to have those photos if they've passed, have anybody ever reached back out to you for photos that they may be like lost and like, someone passed away, do you have these photos?
No, because once the gallery sent to them, they have that. They'll
forever. Okay.
But for most part of it, we've noticed, because some of the photos were used for like a beach years,
right?
Like somebody passed. And that's just we've dealt with fair share of families that we work with over the years. Brides, wedding industry, for example, where dad passed away,
right?
Or mom passed. So to them, it's like those photos become. There's even more value.
Yeah.
That's why family photos become even more important to them. To remember, like, hey, take a photo of with the mom and the bride, or any side of the family.
Right.
But we did a wedding maybe 3-4 years ago where the groom passed away, and it was like the saddest thing.
Yeah.
So, but those photos, they will be there forever, and it's
Well, that's what I tell everybody. I was like, that's the one thing you actually really walk away with. We had a wedding. It's been a long time ago, but mom ended up going to the hospital before the ceremony. And so she wasn't in any of the photos. And it was like 2 months later, the photographer went to where they lived and they reenacted it. And then she passed. So it was super sad with that. But the photographer's now done their family photos for years now, which is so cool because she was able to capture that. So
we're a generation of Instagram. We're a generation now where we'll put a value of what we have and put it out there. And even though I know family dynamic is still very important, or family value is still important, but we're like all in the moment of like today, what's today? Who's going to look at us today?
Right.
And then over time, what happens is that because we've been doing photography for so long, over the years, people come back to us and then they remember the photos because then they look at the people who was there, who's not there anymore. It's a completely different.
Yeah.
And we always put this value to them. You know, you're thinking about how it's going to look on your Instagram tomorrow. How about wait for 10 years and see how much more value that photo or that image is going to be for you 10 years from now.
Right.
And it becomes, you know, more valuable. It's kind of like, you know, how red wine gets better over.
No, absolutely. Yeah. No, I like that analogy.
We just did, last year we were at the oyster roast for a company. And I just brought my camera with me and we took a couple of photos there and there was, you know, a few elderly folks and I just, you know, walked around. I always managed to like I tend to take photos of older folks just because, you know, like if it's a grandma or grandpa and I'm not talking about with a bride or groom, just in general, just a portrait of them, just a headshot portrait, you know, just walk up to them. It's like, let me, you know, makes them feel good. You know, they're sitting there. Sometimes they're not dancing, you know, but on the occasion of it, you know, once they're gone, it's like, you know, families have that.
Right.
And it's, you know.
No, for sure. Okay. Any weird photography requests from a couple that takes the cake?
Honestly, no.
No. Have they sent you any like crazy photos? Oh, we want to reenact this, or.
This is one thing that's been great for us is that I've never gotten a list from a client of another photographer to redo something. They potentially, when they come to us, they want to feel at ease. They want to feel like that we got it, and they want to trust us. It's almost like, I don't want to tell you how to do your job. I just want you to come there and just tell me what to do and make me look great. That's it.
That's awesome.
You know, and they don't.
Can all of our clients be like that? No, kidding.
But for most part of it, it's different for us. You probably work with larger value of
multiple personality. You know, we're working with mom, dad. You know, bride, groom.
We'll get occasionally maybe a family member, a mom, or someone comes to us and they will ask like, "Oh, we want this," or "We want a photo by there." You know, and then potentially it's all about setting up expectations for them. Because I don't agree to everything. Because if I would agree to everything and then you cannot deliver, then it's on you. For me, it's all about expectations. You know, they'll say like, "Well, we want to have a photo here," and they'll say, "If the light is right, we could probably do it, but we have to see it on the wedding day or how it's going to be there." Because, you know, we went to Greenville to do a wedding. I remember a client's name. Her name is Ellie Rogers. She's a local.
Oh yeah,
you know her, right? She's you know, she was in. Pageant, but amazing person. So they hired us, and we went to on Greenville to do their wedding there. We actually arrived like a couple days early. We went downtown because there was going to be a downtown area, and we explored the area. We knew all the spots. We had everything set up. We're super excited. We were going to be there. We knew exactly what we were going to do on the wedding day. Pouring down rain. We cannot go to any of those locations. You know, so we had to. You know, we were inside of a building and did the majority of the photos there, and they loved them all. But I'm just saying. So it's like, you know, even
there's things that you can't control, aka the weather. And back to what you just said, like that is super important. Like we'll sometimes work with a lot of our clients are destinations, so they'll come from out of town and maybe they bring a photographer with them. And it blows my mind that a photographer will not meet us the day before or 2 days before to do a walkthrough of, let's just say, Brook Green Gardens to kind of know the spots. Like, oh, figure it out when we get there. But like, and everybody works differently, but I kind of like to lay the land and know like expectations and like where to be. And then guess what's happening wedding day? Where do we go? Where, you know, do you have a golf cart? And I'm like, this is why I wanted you to come do a walkthrough.
We just came back from Highlands. We did a wedding in Highlands at Old Edwards.
Cool. Yep.
That's a beautiful
venue. Yeah.
It was a beautiful
She was
place
beautiful.
altogether.
I saw the photos. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
But we went to Highlands and we did a wedding there. We arrived there on Friday. We had a rehearsal dinner that evening. We arrived probably around 10 a.m. on Friday. We left like super early. I think we left like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
But we arrived there and we met with a wedding videographer, which was amazing. He actually reached out to us a couple of days prior and I said, let's meet up in, you know, depending on what time we arrived. So we arrived there, I think around 10 a.m. and we called each other and we were like, yeah, we're both in town. Let's go get some breakfast. So
cool.
And it was raining. It wasn't super cold like we expected, but it was just raining.
Right.
We went out, we had breakfast. We talked a little bit about just meet up. And then we literally spent the entire day, you know, from noontime till about maybe 4 o'clock exploring the Old Everts, exactly where the venue is, you know, what we're going to do because it's going to rain for the next 2 days versus like doing stuff outside. Now we have to figure everything out. And we met with a wedding planner there and it made us feel a little bit more at ease because we had the plan B. We knew exactly where we're going to go, what we're going to do. And we try to do this if we can, if we arrive there, but if not, we'll arrive an hour before the wedding day if needs to. But for most venues, we've been there. But if we have not been there, we usually will try to do that. We'll arrive there. We'll try to walk around the venue, see exactly what we're going to do, like family photos, or if we do, bridal party photos. We need to know. It makes us feel more confident, more comfortable that we know that, instead of just kind of like, let's figure out,
I mean, that would be like us planning a wedding, but never showing up until we like set it up. Like something's going to go wrong. Something's not going to fit. Okay. Back to the videographer. Like that is super important for photo and video. Even if you never work together, at least connect and talk about expectations and what shots they want to get. Because I've had some weddings like photographer and videographer kind of go at it. Like videographer's in the way of the photographer. Like have you ever experienced any of that? Or
occasionally?
Okay.
Occasionally it happens. And the thing is, like, we get along with everyone.
Of course.
And we try to potentially, just because of my persona, like I'll communicate. Like I will walk up to them, even if we've never met before. We'll just introduce each other. We'll talk to them, and we'll say, "Listen, we work very nice with everyone." So
of course,
we remember that we're here for a client. So I know you need to get your video,
your shots,
you need to get our photos. So let's work together. And because they'll have a team of 2, I have a team of 2, for example, or 3 sometimes, and I'll send next to one person, they send next to another person. So this way we're not on in each other's way, and we'll try to work through. And most videographers, amazing. Like it's amazing to work with them, and professionals will do amazing work because we work together for a client. Occasionally you'll get someone who comes in and they're just new hot shot that they could care less. And once we realize that the conversation that was at the beginning just will not go anywhere, then I go into our Pasha Belman photography mode where we know what we need and we're going to get it. But if you don't want to play nice, we're still going to be professional about it.
Right.
But we don't even understand that you're even there. Like you're not there for us at this point. But for most part, honestly, and that's why I think it's important for when clients looking into videographers, because what they're trying to do sometimes, videography can be very expensive as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, you spend just as much on the videos, photos.
And that's why it's nice when they come to you and you bring that A team to them, because it works very well together. Because once we don't work well with someone, sometimes they'll ask us. We don't talk bad about any other vendors. We'll just say, here's who we recommend. Yeah. We don't say who we don't recommend. We just say, this is what we, bring in A team.
Challenging. No, I'm kidding. That's what we say. They're challenging.
And it's rarely it happens.
For sure.
But it happens. But that's why we have when someone comes to us, once they book us, because through social media and our marketing, they find us sometimes before they even get engaged. And once they get engaged and they start asking us about vendors, we'll suggest a wedding planner. I was like, they have a list of amazing vendors, but if they specifically come to us and they'll ask for a referral for videography, we might have only like 2 or 3 people that we like to work with. Because we're not asking them, well, how much do you want to spend? We're just referring based on, I know they work very well.
Yeah.
And then they also produce amazing films.
Right.
I don't need somebody to show up there like, look at me. I hold a camera, I do videos, and then they just walk around behind you. We just need someone who can, the videographer that we just worked with, I'm not going to mention names just yet. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. and at Old Edwards. I mean, it was just nice because he was also very confident. So he was also taking charge. And I will say, hey, step in, do that. Let me step back and be that sort of second shooter where I want to see because they create video and photos are 2 different things.
Oh,
once
absolutely.
the videographer steps in and takes over, it's nice for us to see how people actually interact for video, but we also get to create some amazing images because of that.
Right. No, for sure. Well, since we're talking challenging, let's talk difficult clients. Have you ever had a couple that you had to turn away due to being difficult or difference of an opinion? Or fired? No, I'm kidding. No?
Never fired anyone.
Okay. Anyone ever fired you?
No, mostly just canceled.
I don't know.
No.
Cancel.
Not fired. I never kind of come across of a challenging client. It was mostly just, the only
Maybe
time.
you should teach a communicating class if you've never had a difficult client. I'm quite impressed.
Why?
I'm just saying.
15
years? Come on. I'm kidding.
No, and I'll tell you what, I think probably with us, potentially, once a client comes to us, and I think it's mostly just, once they come to us and they reach out, for example, for pricing, we send it to them. We're very firm at the very beginning, so they can see how you potentially negotiate with them at the very beginning, or you potentially communicate about pricing, or you communicate to them about your value and how you do stuff. and they see that. And once they realize that you're confident enough to stand your ground, they don't push you around altogether.
Yeah.
Because what happens a lot of times, and I'm sure, again, it's a different, every case is very different.
Of course.
Occasionally we'll have a client who, we book, everything is amazing. And then, sometimes mother steps in and they can be overbearing occasionally. But in the process of it, again, it's all about expectations. As long as we can set up expectations that, yes, I can do that, or no, I cannot do that. And usually my expectations are set at the very beginning before they even book us, before they reserve, before they pay us. So this way, I don't ever book a client based on promises like, oh, sure, we can do this. Oh, sure, we can manage to do this.
Absolutely.
I'm like, nope. And once they hear that, no, or we cannot do this, and they're just like what? What do you mean? You
tell me no on my wedding day? Everything's a yes, right?
So, before the wedding day. It's all before they even book us. But again, it also goes back to that we only do about 20 weddings a year. We're not doing, maybe if we had 60 weddings a year, maybe if we had, maybe. But for most part of it.
That's awesome.
The only weddings that we lost is based on differences in
maybe they changed their venue.
Cancel, COVID time happened, type of thing.
Not get married anymore.
Yeah. But for most part, I always managed to serve. Going back to my restaurant days, is that I waited tables, and I want to please people. I want people to be happy.
Of
like
course.
Like when someone comes to your house, you want them to feel welcome.
Right.
So I did this when I was waiting tables. Like when they come in, people would come back and ask for me, for my section, just to sit so I could wait on them because they enjoy the experience of it. So the experience continues into my everyday life. Like, just, I don't know, treat everyone with respect. Have some, be humble, have humility to the, humankind. It's just, I don't know, I think being nice going a long way, and
for sure.
But still being professionally firm on things that you believe in, because at the end of the day, I know you have the same thing. It's like once you say your goal and how you want it, that needs to be that way. So
no, absolutely.
Because if
and especially at a wedding, like there's ways to deliver things, and I think some people struggle with that, like in regards to like. So have you had a crazy story at a wedding with like iPads or people taking photos or being in your way?
Probably at the beginning of our career, yes. And I think it was, it was challenging at the beginning. And then everybody was talking about how like we shouldn't have phones, we shouldn't do this. Oh, this is crazy. And occasionally, but for most part of it, I think over time, it took some time. And I think people are also learning that. They're seeing this. It's a trend that don't bring your phone, don't be that person.
Yeah, don't be that person.
And I think it's slowly coming down a bit. I feel like it's actually a lot better now than it was before. Before it was like people doing it, but then I think they're also seeing on social media, they're like, don't be that, uncle around who's bringing the big iPad or sticking that orange phone with the, orange cover on top of it and, taking videos. But it still happens. But on occasion, I will occasionally, depending on what we're doing, especially if it's like a first dance or if it's, with a bridal party, we'll ask them. I was like, girls, just leave their phone behind. So this way, if I'm taking a photo, I don't want to see, and it's nice when you do the, first dance of a bride and groom, and because we also take photos of the guests as well that are watching them to see their expressions, and all you see is just this, so it's like that's what they're going to see,
Right.
But it doesn't bother us anymore. We're like, listen, if this is what you want to do, we'll try to avoid it, or we'll just Photoshop the phone out and place a chicken in your hand or something.
Right.
AI now is amazing.
Right. I love it. Do you have any other wedding stories that take the cake?
I don't have.
Come on.
I can't. I'm so not like, I can tell you this. I don't have any stories that will potentially be like, oh my God, crazy. Just because, again.
Well, not even like at a wedding. Has anything ever happened that you saw?
I mean, do we see a lot of challenges at weddings? Absolutely.
Yeah. No,
I think rain is one of them.
Rain's the worst.
Because.
That really messes you up, for the photos.
I can deal with it.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, the clients envision these outdoor photos,
Exactly. The challenging part for us is not actually finding, plan B for us, what we need to do. It's just it's for us, the hard part is to see an upset bride who envisioned this day and how she wanted it to be. Like, you're right about, the rain portion of it. And then, but some people handle it better than others.
For sure.
Occasionally, sometimes people they can't handle it, and they just need more, encouragement. And it takes
words
a while.
of affirmation. Yeah, no, for sure.
And that's the hard part, because that's what, and they don't want to settle on a plan B. They wait till last minute because, they hope that the rain will stop. And we absolutely, and especially here in the South, most of our venues are all outdoors.
Oh yeah. And it could rain 5 minutes and be beautiful the next, rest of the evening. But,
but no crazy stories. I wish I could tell you something I was almost gonna make something out, but I just can't.
I mean, the elephant eating the cake's pretty good.
Yeah,
So that was definitely pretty epic. So obviously your branding marketing is you're like the king of that, just so you know. If you Google anything about photography in this area, you only see Pasha Belman. So let's kind of talk about like the SEO part.
Okay.
Like you're the king of that, right?
Okay. Yes. I'll take that as a yes. Absolutely.
You'll take that as a yes. So, and you're offering for potentials to do SEO work?
Yes.
I think that's awesome. Because a lot of people don't understand the back end of how important those things are.
So the SEO part of it, or just marketing in general, is that, you know, people ask us, like, what do you do in the winter time? Like, let's say February, we have no weddings.
Right.
Or January, we had no weddings.
Right.
What do you do? Like, are you just like chilling, you know, watching Netflix, doing absolutely nothing? I was like, no, we're doing marketing. What kind of marketing? What are you talking about? You're a photographer, you know? And I was like, well, we work on the back ends of our websites. You know, we have to upload photos to Instagram. We have to upload photos to Facebook. We have to upload photos to, you know, blogs and websites. And then potentially in the process, we also want to make sure that people can find us.
Of course.
Because I think the old way, or the original way back in the days when maybe internet wasn't so like out there, you know, we relied on every vendor to potential referrals, and we still do.
Like
don't get me wrong.
Of course,
we absolutely love our referrals. When the referrals come from you, from a wedding planner, I think they're even more stronger because they come from trust. They trust you, and you say this is the best, they'll go with it. My goal potentially was at the beginning as well is to build that, but also to make sure that I wanted a bride who's going to find me before she gets engaged. I wanted her to fall in love with our work.
I love that.
Before she even gets engaged. So that way, you know, like,
she's a fan.
I have two girls. We have two girls.
Yeah.
11 and 6 and almost 7. They fantasize about different things, not weddings. They're too young, but just in general, they fantasize about trips, or they're doing different things. So people think, and then now, like, for example, my 11-year-old, she's all about Pinterest. Like, she pinned the whole, I mean, she comes into this office, she'll probably pin everything because she wants this. Like, Pinterest is
I hope you're saving up for her wedding.
We're gonna talk about that. That's, but just in general of it is that we want to make sure that we potentially find that person who is going to fall in love with our photos before they even think about those photos, you know, before they think about the wedding day. So this way they can see the popularity of it, or who it is. And like you said, people see us everywhere. It's almost like, you know, a lot of those commercials, like when you pop up in different areas, people are just kind of like, oh, it doesn't have to be a huge billboard of my face there. No. But it's just occasional, just a small pop, Pasha Belman. Right. And they get to like remember that. So when the time actually, we had so many clients that will actually come to us and they'll say, I've been following your work for, I don't know, 3-4 years. I didn't even know how I followed you or how I found you.
Came across, yeah.
But you came across, and then we followed you. And then after that, we just see all those photos of the different weddings. So when I got engaged, that's the first person I'm thinking of. And a lot of times it's amazing when they come to us and they say, we haven't even like found a venue. We have no wedding planner. We have nothing. We just want to know if you're available on the date. Yeah. And it's amazing.
No, that's definitely like rewarding and like heartwarming and, you know, things like that.
But it's a lot of work. SEO is a lot of work. You have to put, anything is a lot of, if you put hard work into it.
Yeah. You get, I mean, what you put in is what you get out of it.
It doesn't happen over time. I mean, it took us, you know, many years just to figure out what we need to do, what works, what doesn't work. Right. And I think if it didn't work, we potentially sort of stepped away from it. You know, for the longest time, we were trying to be published everywhere, every single magazine, every single wedding blog. And then I realized that I was like, it actually hurts my website because I could be publishing all those things to my website and getting them out there. I want to be able to do this. Yeah,
and those are popping up before your website.
Exactly. Yeah. So I want to be able to, you know, especially you compete with the Knot or Wedding Wire. Yeah. You know, for local, somebody searches for Myrtle Beach photographers and Wedding Wire pops up and then you're number 16. I was like, no, I'm number 2. At least I'm right there. So if a client finds the Knot and I know they're doing amazing work with SEO, I want to be right next to it. So, and that's just to even, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to book that particular client. But if
you
the client,
want them to see you.
Well, because when they go to the Knot, I'm on there, but I think we have a free account there. So I'm going to be somewhere on page number 65.
Right. Yeah.
But at least my link is going to be right underneath of theirs.
Yeah.
So,
no,
and that's kind of like what we managed to, you know, I don't know. And social media, I think, blew off for us as well. We work very hard with it.
So do you do all the social media or do you have a social media person?
So we had a social media person, but we do, for most of it, we do everything.
Everything.
And house. So
cool.
we had, it's just different because when we had somebody, I cannot manage it the way I want to manage, or see, how we can respond to clients or how we can respond to people and just be more personal. So I was trying to be like more hands-on. So we were at the beginning, then we brought someone on board, and then we potentially just said, you know what, I'm going to take it back. This way I can actually communicate to people. I was able to talk to people. I was able to respond to comments, and it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
But we have the time. The crazy part of it is, like, we always say, like, we don't have the time. It's an excuse. We always have the time.
Of course, you make time for what you want to.
Exactly.
So if that's important to you to, do that. And it's really hard. Like, it's almost like you just have somebody that's works for you and only you to manage something like that. Yes. They have to learn your personality, your style, like all those things.
The crazy part is, like, I think for me too, I'm still in the learning aspect of it. I need to still find someone that I can just say, you know what, nobody's going to be just like me. It's not going to happen.
Of course.
And, and if I do find someone just like me, they'll potentially already have their own business at that point.
Right. Right.
So, but finding someone and allocating that work sometimes will actually also free me up to do other things as well.
Right. So do you use an app base for your posts, so they're auto?
No. Nope.
You really should look into that.
We did. We tried. And it was so,
really?
It was so generic because what you have to do is that you have to sit there and you have to put, let's say 9 posts, right? You have to, like, recreate all of them at the same time. And your brain just kind of, like, first of all, you have to figure out which photos you're going to combine together, then what you're going to talk about, right? For us, it's almost like, but if you make it more emotional, and in order to do emotional, you cannot do emotional when you have, like, 9 photos and you have to write posts. It becomes like almost like a robot that just have to, like, spit it out. So for us, what we end up doing is that we just said, we tried that, but we end up going back to where I literally will open up a wedding, and I'll find a photo that just speaks to me, and then I'll send it to Natalia, my wife, and our second, lead photographer with us, and I'll say, let's come up with a caption for this photo for Instagram, and then she'll go and she's all the reels that we have, the most viral reels that we have on our Instagram, it was Natalia's. Like, she's amazing at putting these videos together, combining with text and words, and then putting something out there, and then they generate, like, thousands of views. Or we had one video, 42 million views.
Stop it! Oh my gosh, that's cool. Which one was that one?
Where it was a little kid riding in a little white car, and it goes
Kids
down.
Always steal the show.
And they go down the aisle, and it's something like, I have to show you, but it's so viral. I guarantee if you see this video,
I've probably seen it.
You didn't even think it was me.
You. Okay.
But you will see the video, and it was like, 42 million views. I think it got like over like 3 million likes or something. It was.
That's cool.
That's awesome. It's kind of. It was just a simple video. It was just, Natalia. We were at the wedding, and Natalia took her phone out, and she saw the baby was going down the aisle, in the remote control car. So the father was actually.
I think I've seen this. I don't think I knew it was you. Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'll show you after the podcast. I'll show you the video.
Oh my god.
But so many people actually, when I actually mention it to people, they're just like, I've seen it. And then they don't pay attention. It says Pasha Belman photography.
Right. Yeah. So. Because a lot of times you're just swiping or like clicking or you're going through.
Sara and Andrew's wedding. Remember we did Sara and Andrew wedding?
Yeah.
We did Natalia did their hey Sara, hey Andrew up top. It went super viral. To the point where other wedding blogs and Instagrammers start resharing our videos without our knowledge, just because it's a content, and they were just copying and posting. But that one very viral too. Like it was just it's something different, and most of our videos are done with cell phones. So this is what we've
same. For sure.
Professional videos.
Right. No, that's cool. Well, tell everybody how they can find you. Obviously on Insta, Facebook, all those things.
Just Google Pasha Belman photography.
He'll pop right up.
You'll pop right up. But yeah, you can find us through Instagram, Facebook. My website is pashabelman.com.
And if you need some SEO work, he can help you get to the top there. So awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to this
Thank you for having me.
Cake.
I enjoyed it.
This was awesome. So thank you.